What's up, man? Thank you so much for being in here. So, guys, do me a favor, like the video, engage with us here at Burn It Down with Kim Brown at BIDWKB around your internet streets, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch. Come fuck with me, follow me. I don't like how that sounded, but whatever. Follow me. I mean, like, kick it with me. Sorry. Anyway, when the cursing gets out of control. So anyway, there's not enough cursing that can be done on the topic of the continued Israeli genocide against the people of Palestine, what continues to happen at the refugee camps in Gaza, in and around Rafah, are crimes against humanity. And we can now put ourselves in the people in the shoes of the people around the world back during the Holocaust when a genocide was happening right there in front of people's faces, and people either turned away, looked away, couldn't face it, denied accepting Jewish refugees to a number of countries, including this one. And what did America do? Nothing until America got punched in the face by somebody else and was dragged into the war for those reasons, but not for the humanitarian reasons of trying to rescue the Jewish people from the Holocaust. But here we are witnessing a genocide happening right now, being committed by settler colonialists there in Israel. Okay. And this is all being documented extremely well. The Nazis also documented very well their war crimes and their crimes against humanity. But it is not the Israelis that are documenting what they are doing. Well, they are, but not in the same sort of meticulous way that the Nazis were doing it. They're documenting it. The IOF and IDF forces are recording themselves committing atrocities, I guess, for clout, right? I mean, because they keep recording themselves doing these horrific and atrocious things, and then they post it for people to see. It's like, why are y'all doing this? For views and clicks? Because you're proud of your actions? You think you're doing a good thing? You think you want to drive engagement? Like, what is the reason? Like, why would you show anyone, let alone the world, that this is how you're treating human beings, most of whom are women and children? Well, we've had another report given by the United Nations, and what it's almost a carbon copy of what has been presented before, what has been presented at the ICJ, what has been presented at the ICC. But the fact that these reports keep coming out tells us, number one, that these atrocities are ongoing and continuous. They have not ceased or abated at all. And that the drumbeat, the point needs to be driven home to every person walking this planet, that civilians are being targeted for destruction. These people in Palestine are being almost driven to extinction via bombings and via starvation. And I want us to listen to the presentation given by one of the investigators from the United Nations. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this was being presented to the Security Council. Let me verify that, and I will confirm after we watch this clip. But what I want you guys to focus on, again, the atrocities, absolutely. But think about how much it resembles how the United States, well, yes, let's start with there. How the United States dealt with and treated the indigenous and native peoples of this continent. Well, let's throw Canada in there too. How Canada and the United States dealt with the indigenous and native peoples of North America. But of course, we could extend that out to how the imperial European powers did all of these things to the indigenous folks of this whole hemisphere, right? North, Central, and South America. Everybody pretty much got done the same way. And when I listen to the details being recounted in this report, it could easily be applied to what happened to Native people here, what happened to African people a lot of places, right? What's happening to indigenous people of many places around the world because of European colonizers. And the Israelis are colonizers. Also European colonizers, not from there. Y'all ain't even from fucking here. Here y'all is. The like gentrification on steroids is what is happening. So let's listen to the report. Let's take it away, Will.
Conclude that Israeli authorities are responsible for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and violations of international humanitarian and human rights law, including extermination, intentionally directing attacks against civilians and civilian objects, murder or willful killing, using starvation as a method of war, forcible transfer, gender persecution targeting Palestinian men and boys, sexual and gender-based violence amounting to torture, and cruel or inhuman treatment. Israel's total siege of the Gaza Strip has weaponized the provision of life-sustaining necessities for strategic and political gains, including through cutting off supplies of water, food, electricity, fuel, and other essential supplies, including humanitarian assistance. It constitutes collective punishment, disproportionately impacting pregnant women and persons with disabilities, and is causing grave harm to children, including starvation-related deaths. We found that the immense numbers of civilian casualties in Gaza and widespread destruction of civilian objects and infrastructure were the inevitable result of an intentional strategy to cause maximum damage, disregarding the legal obligations of distinction, proportionality, and adequate precautions. Israel also forcibly transferred almost the entire population into small enclosures that are unsafe and uninhabitable. The deliberate use of heavy weapons with large destructive capacity in densely populated areas constitutes an intentional and direct attack on the civilian population. Although Israeli officials have repeatedly stated that their operations in Gaza are intended to destroy Hamas and to release hostages, yet neither of these aims has been largely achieved at the expense of thousands of lives. We found that Israeli forces committed sexual and gender-based violence with the intent to humiliate and further subordinate the Palestinian community. Palestinian women were targeted and subjected to sexual violence and harassment online and in person. Men and boys experienced specific persecutory acts, including sexual and gender-based violence amounting to torture and inhuman and cruel treatment. The Commission concluded that specific forms of sexual and gender-based violence constitute part of Israeli security forces' operating procedures. Excellencies, the situation in the Gaza Strip has overshadowed that in the West Bank, where Palestinian fatalities recorded since 7th October have exceeded any other recorded period. This is linked to increasingly militarized Israeli operations, a trend which we highlighted in our report to the General Assembly last year, as well as a surge in violent settler attacks on Palestinian communities, often assisted or condoned by Israeli forces. The blatant disregard for international law across the entire occupied Palestinian territory has disproportionately impacted Palestinian children. In Gaza, Israeli security forces have killed and maimed tens of thousands of children, and thousands more likely remain under the rubble. Israeli attacks have also severely impacted infrastructure essential for the well-being of children, including hospitals, schools, and basic services.
So that was the Human Rights Commission giving their report, further explaining and detailing it with tremendous sadness. I think that's the same woman I saw give the report that she was speaking of to the United Nations General Assembly late last year, and she could barely get through the report. She was choking back tears because of some of the images that the Human Rights Commission had seen and assembled in order to prepare this information. And you heard there the sexual violence committed by Israeli forces against Palestinian civilians, men, women, and children. She said that was part of the Israeli forces' standard procedures. They probably trained for that, to be honest, right? She said that there has not been this many recorded deaths in Palestine since October 7th. This is the biggest number of deaths in Palestinian history since they've been keeping records of such things. More Palestinians have died since October 7th than at any other point in recorded history, right? But recent recorded history, right? It's a genocide. Thousands of children dead. She said thousands more probably under the rubble. And when we hear the numbers, 40,000, that's the people that they've been able to count, you guys. Those are the people that they've been able to lay eyes on and see and count them. Thousands more are probably dead. And Benjamin Netanyahu had the nerve to pop shit. And listen, I'm when it comes to Netanyahu versus Biden, you guys know I'm here for the white on white violence. Okay. Benjamin Netanyahu is a white. Okay. Make no mistake. He might be a multilingual white. Sure. He's a white. Okay. And if him and Biden want to tear each other apart politically, go the fuck right ahead. I do not care. But the United States is enabling and facilitating a genocide. There is no question about that. And I hope, even though I know, even if Biden loses and Trump wins, but Joe Biden should not be rewarded with a second term behind these atrocities. But here's the thing, guys. So the Israelis are running the Nazi playbook. Nazis was running the U.S. settler colonialist, settler colonizer playbook, right? So it's like, first of all, there is no subduing a people without genocide. There is no stealing of the land. There is no possession of the land that the colonizer can take from the indigenous folk, right? Without a genocide occurring. So this is what we're seeing. That's what the Nazis did. That's what the Americans did to the native people, and then by extension to what they did to Africans via chattel slavery. But please don't think that what's happening to the Palestinians right now could not happen to us right now. Like right fucking now, okay? Like I think everybody is in agreement that fascism is not something that's looming on the horizon when as it pertains to these United States. The fascism is right here, right fucking now. And while we could be distracted at the conservative targeting of the LGBTQ community, of the trans community, those among our folks can be like, well, I don't know about them. I don't agree with that shit. I don't like that lifestyle. Uh-huh. It's all well and good until somebody don't agree with your lifestyle, okay? And your lifestyle may not even go as deep as your sexuality. Your lifestyle might just be you being black and existing, okay? Like, so I seen this clip on Al Jazeera English that I thought was extremely relevant, especially considering what we talk about here on this platform, the rampant misuse and abuse of power by the state in the form of law enforcement, particularly against marginalized communities, first and foremostly against Black communities. And we all know in the incestuous, let's call it that. Let's go hard with the words. The incestuous relationship between the Israeli military and American law enforcement. And I want you guys to check out this report from Al Jazeera English, because all the first thing that came into my head once this woman began her report was Cop City. Fucking Cop City. And not just the Cop City in Atlanta, all of the Cop cities that our dear esteemed sister Renee Johnston has done tremendous work and research on. Please watch Saturdays with Renee, Saturday at 11 a.m. on Black Liberation Media. But go in the playlist and see where Renee has done this. And she's also spoken at different groups about the dozens of Cop cities that are either currently being constructed or are in the proposal phase, in the planning phases, right? And where they get that idea from, all these Cop cities, motherfucking Israelis. But y'all see what I'm talking about? Let's check out this package from Al Jazeera English.
Heard about mini Gaza? It's basically a ghost town in the middle of the desert.
Where Israeli soldiers.
Have you heard about mini Gaza? It's basically a ghost town in the middle of the desert, where Israeli soldiers train for urban warfare. The simulation city, which is located in the south of Israel and costs tens of millions of dollars, by the way, has 600 buildings, including schools and mosques that even broadcast the call to prayer. Soldiers there carry out combat exercises, usually down narrow streets with walls covered with messages like Free Gaza and portraits of Palestinian fighters, not painted by Palestinians though, but all painted by the Israeli army's official graffiti artist. But while this is happening in the Middle East, you might not be surprised to learn that US law enforcement officers are also being trained in these camps in Israel. According to Jewish Voice for Peace and researching the American-Israeli alliance, the exchange facilitates a transfer of tactics including police violence and control, mass surveillance, racial profiling, and even the suppression of protests and dissent. Since 2017, there has been a huge push to end what is being called a deadly exchange, but there's been little success with that. So, with the spotlight currently on police brutality at student encampments across the US, we're seeing more and more people calling for the divestment in Israeli military training. By deploying the same tactics, critics could say it's one and the same institution.
One in the same institution. And we see what the Israeli forces are doing right now versus a population that they deem less than worthy of respect, less than worthy of basic humanity. How do police treat Black people? How are people who are migrants coming across the southern border being treated? How are our LGBTQ family being treated? This what's happening, and I know y'all like, well, Kim, they may not come and like bomb Black areas. No, they may not. I mean, they've done it before. We know what happened with the move bombing in Philly in 85, right? And do I think that well, I'm sorry, you can't put nothing past crackers, okay? Do I think they do it again? No, I don't think so. Soon as you say that shit, the crackers will surprise you in the worst ways. But do I think that? I kind of do not, because they want to gentrify where we live, right? They want to live where we live. Like, look in DC, everywhere Black people used to be is the Watts, right? The Watts is there. So no, they don't want to bomb our shit like they do in Palestine, but they might want to round us up and move us the fuck around at gunpoint under the threat of violence. You think Joe Biden's coming to save us? It might be at Joe Biden's fucking direction for all the fuck I know. So I saw, okay, so there's that, right? And then Cop City, you heard the reporter there talking how the Israelis have spent tens of millions of dollars on this training facility, 600 buildings to simulate an urban environment, right? Cop fucking city. Who do you think those cops are training for? Who are they getting these tens of millions of dollars to cut down the forest in Atlanta, to cause environmental damage to the neighborhood and to the land, in order to train, to kill, to surveil, to racial profile whom? Us, you and me. And for the white folks, your black friends. Okay, maybe not y'all. But I mean, N-word lovers, oh, y'all can get it too. History has shown us that also.